Welcome to the Remembering Podcast. This is a podcast designed to help you remember who you are. We're coming from Nashville, Tennessee. I'm one of your two hosts, OnenO.
And I'm KK.
Yeah. Very enthusiastic. Well, today we got a subject that we want to break down for you guys. It's really new to us, and we're by no means any sort of experts on this subject. But honestly, I don't think there are experts on this subject. It's such a brand new topic. And it's the idea of conspirituality. It's it's a new word, new buzzword.
Is that a new term? Because I feel like I'm getting overpowered with new phrases and terms every day.
All the time.
We've got a new term, conspirituality.
Yeah, they're basically making a new word. And so this word is a mashup of the words spirituality and conspiracy.
Oh, conspiracy.
Yeah, so conspirituality. So this came to my attention through an article that was written by Teen Vogue. And this article is basically trying to get to the bottom of what is going on in the spirituality movement that is leading people to be so, what's the right word? Like they dissent from the mainstream narrative.
Mm-hmm.
You know, why are these people peddling misinformation and things like that? From a spiritual perspective.
Right.
You know, why don't you just put on a mask? Why don't you just support lockdowns? Why don't you just take the vaccine?
Mm-hmm.
And so this article is really positioning itself to say that these people that claim to be part of the wellness community are actually just anti-vaxxers in disguise.
Mm-hmm.
And that they're peddling misinformation and they're calling it spiritual.
Yep.
And then they associate it with these people are either part of or duped by QAnon and the alt-right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure the term white supremacy is in there somewhere,
Yeah.
So it's just the modern day, it's another version of the modern day use of the word crazy to just dismiss somebody and their ideas.
Yeah. Well, I have the actual article pulled up.
Awesome.
It is written by Brittany McNamara, and it was debuted on February 12th of 2021. So, not even a month ago, this was released to the internet for all to see. And I know that in our circles here in Nashville, we have quite a few people that I think could be labeled a conspirituality.
Just? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Anyway, but I wanted to bring up that this article, and I encourage everyone that's listening to this podcast, like check this out, read it for yourself because
it's on teenvogue.com.
Yep, Teen Vogue, and then just put Teen Vogue. You could Google Teen Vogue Conspirituality, and it comes right up.
That's how I found it.
But it's basically the premise of it is people in the spiritual community are spreading misinformation about what's happening in the world over the last year, whether it be COVID, mask, vaccines, staying in your house,
questioning
being
lockdowns.
A super spreader or not. What is that? And all of this stuff, it's really trying to spin someone who critically thinks, which is another term that has been demonized over the last year, which is wild in itself. But basically, if you are thinking for yourself and you are encouraging other people to think for yourself, it literally says, and quote, you are peddling falsehoods. And it's, I just, end quote, there you go.
Right, yeah. Yeah, the wild thing to me about the article is it's interviewing a few different people. It's interviewing one doctor. I think you researched this person. Who's the doctor person that they are quoting
she's
in this article?
Psychologist. She's a assistant professor of psychology and human development at Vanderbilt University, right here in Nashville.
Oh, wow. Hey, local.
Hey, girl.
Yeah, hey.
So, that's, me. I have a master's in psychology, so not quite, her level. But I do know a lot of the curriculum that you go through to get to master's or PhD level in psychology has a lot to do with in the times today, understanding different types of societies and cultures and integrating the way multicultural differences blend and being sensitive to that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel for me, this is a direct, this is opposite of what she's trying to convey in her message.
Yeah. To summarize for people out there, this the writer of the article, as well as this, did you say professor of psychology?
Mm-hmm.
Their view is trying to call into question, why are people anti-vax in the wellness community specifically,
Mm-hmm.
and in the quote unquote spiritual community?
Mm-hmm.
And I only use quotes right there because these people, it's all this label. Like, this is a label coming from a third party into a community that does not use this label, right?
Mm-hmm.
So by definition, it's a type of derogatory label.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, they're laying out that the wellness community has moved the goalpost from being officially anti-vax to being quote unquote pro-choice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wild. They call out different hashtags, saying that the use of hashtags like the Great Awakening or health sovereignty or things like that, they're saying that these are all QAnon alt-right hashtags. Meanwhile, like those of us that have been on the spiritual awakening path, my awakening happened in 2010. The idea of the Great Awakening has so much deeper roots coming, especially back from that timeline, that we are now in, but back in 2010, we were approaching a period of time where humanity would be undergoing a mass awakening of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you get to 2020 and there is this mass awakening of human consciousness. And now they're saying the use of that hashtag is just a QAnon conspiracy theory.
Yeah, it's funny to me. They actually bring up a Venn diagram. And they, in this article, it says the Venn diagram, the wellness community, and then the conspiracy theories and anti-vax communities. It's like a Venn diagram that overlaps on the concepts like choice and freedom and liberty.
Mm-hmm.
So what sucks is that if you are questioning anything it's all about the media.
Yeah.
Anything that the media is putting out there, and if you question it, you are more obsessed with your freedom.
Yeah, by the way, why is that bad?
Than other people's safety.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why do those two things have to be pitted against each other?
Right.
And that's the manipulation, and that in itself is the conspiracy theory.
Totally.
So,
yeah, I mean, I'd love to read a quote right here from, I think this is towards the middle or end of the article. This is quoting Caulfield. I don't remember who Caulfield is.
He is the law attorney guy that she interviews.
Right.
He's about half. His credentials are in here. I looked him up earlier.
Yeah. So this is a quote from him. He says, "The tolerance of pseudoscience and tolerance of unproven therapies was the phenomenon that got us to where we are. The idea of being anti-vax, of being suspicious of conventional sources of science, is part of the wellness ideology. The toleration of magical thinking has real consequences." And that's actually part of the quote that they use for the title of this article. So they're trying to summarize basically anyone who thinks of their body as a walking, living, breathing miracle, like I do.
Mm-hmm.
I see my body as a creation of the divine, and it's intelligent. My body is intelligent. It knows how to heal itself. It knows how to integrate viruses. This is not a new thing for the body. But now they're just labeling that magical thinking, and that if you think something like vitamin D is going to help you, or that getting zinc or proper sleep or drinking good water, getting exercise, if you put all of your health into that basket, that you're misinformed and that you're harming people by telling people that's how you remain healthy.
Right.
That's wild.
I remember 10 years ago when the idea of going to a cell seminar or something was like, okay, we all have this intuition inside of us where you feel the energy when you walk into a room.
Yeah.
And how to, in sales, it's kind of about manipulating energy or learning how to win someone over, creating that rapport by mirroring or, there's books and books and books about that, right?
Yeah, of course.
So what's funny to me is that one of the sales concepts is kind of like creating or kind of going with that gut instinct. So like if you think of somebody and then your phone rings and it's that person, you haven't talked to them in like 5 years and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And so I remember like kind of like people would be like, yeah, there's something up with that. Like we can't quite figure it out. And people are really kind of into quantum physics and like the, what's that theory where if you look at something, the split light theory, where if you observe something, it acts.
It's called the double slit experiment.
Yes, thank you. You observe a particle, it's going to act differently than when you're not observing it.
Yeah, it either acts as a particle or a wave, depending on the observation of it.
Exactly. And so listen to the definition of magical thinking that just came out about last year. It's a huge term in the psychology therapy realms right now.
Okay, wow, I didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, take me there.
So magical thinking or superstitious thinking, so you can't think outside of, you're going to science, right? Yeah. Is the belief that unrelated events are casually connected despite the absence of any plausible causal link between them. So, okay. So we went from like 7 years ago really studying quantum theory. What is CERN and what are they doing out there in Switzerland with these particles and like throwing them together and observing them. We don't even talk about that anymore. We're so obsessed in the West right now about this political agenda. And if you are going against it, you're a magical thinker and you're dangerous to society.
Yeah, and you're misinformed.
And so in the world of psychology, magical thinking is the belief that one's thoughts by themselves can bring about effects in the world, or that thinking something corresponds with doing it.
Oh my God. Not to mention, these people would have a field day if they ever heard Neville Goddard.
Oh my God.
Can you imagine?
No, yeah.
I was talking to my girl about that last night. I was like, dude, these people would be hating on Neville hard.
Which all the great mystics of our past time. One of my favorite, can I just recite one of my favorite?
Yes, please.
We are totally not going the path we thought we were going to go.
We'll get there. We have a whole thing planned for you guys. Don't worry.
Yeah, Rumi is my favorite. He's a Sufi poet, but he has a quote. Talk about magical. This is some magic right here.
Lay it on me.
The breezes at dawn have secrets to tell you. Do not go back to sleep. You must ask for what you really want. Don't go back to sleep. People are going back and forth across the door sill where the two worlds touch. The door is round and open. Do not go back to sleep. And there's this idea that there's this really potent magical energy that exists between like 3 and 5 in the morning where you can really sit with your thoughts. And the world is, whatever area of the world you're in, the energy of the people moving about and being up is so, it's not as thick. There's more space in the air.
Totally.
And so this creative process of your muse or something outside of yourself can really come into your presence between those hours.
You can hear it more.
Yeah. And that's exactly what Rumi was trying to convey to us hundreds of years ago through a poem.
Absolutely.
But that would be considered magical thinking today.
Yeah. But I'd love to even unpack the Neville Goddard thing since I brought it up. Neville's whole thing is that if you look into the message of the Bible and the understanding of the symbol of Christ and what that means for the inner landscape of the human being, the Bible itself tells story after story after story of how you must deny the physical reality of the 5 senses, go into the imagination, into the inner space, conjure up a vision of the desire that you wish to experience in the first person as if you're experiencing it, and then use that as your meditation. And then when you open your eyes and you re-enter the physical reality, let go of that, but know that that experience is on its way to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so the concept is, and this is from Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
that when you reorganize your inner landscape, there will come a time in what you call the future where the external landscape will mirror that back to you. And then you will live through what you are experiencing from the inside now in the outside world. And this is also what the law of attraction talks about. So that's why, to me, this idea of criticizing the spiritual movement and trying to summarize them as conspiracy theorists is one of the most wild things. Like, this is baked into Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
This is baked into not just New Age thinking or like a bunch of moms in some Facebook group. No offense, moms in Facebook groups.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, this
Do your
isn't,
thing.
yeah, this isn't just a bunch of like armchair warriors. This is literally the spiritual mystery that humans are waking up to. And I find it so ironic that a non-spiritually awake person is going to try to write an article describing what spiritual awakening is
Mm-hmm.
or who those people are.
So when you explain Neville Goddard, he's, for those listening, that's how OnenO and I actually were like, oh, you know who Neville Goddard is?
Yeah,
And
that's
we're
when we
like,
first
oh my
connected.
God, yeah. So anyway, check him out. He's great. You'll have a fun time with him. But what you were explaining, he explains, create that inner landscape. That will become your reality.
Mm-hmm.
And it is that quote, as within, so without, as above, so below.
Yeah.
And it's considered in history, Hermes Trismegistus
Mm-hmm.
is who supposedly said that statement.
Mm.
And for those who are unfamiliar with Hermes Trismegistus, it's supposed to be a mythological combination of the Egyptian god Thoth, which he was the god of wisdom,
Mm-hmm.
and the Greek god Hermes, which was the messengers of the Greek gods of that time. And Hermes Trismegistus, it's also, I've heard this too, Enoch of the
okay.
Bible.
Yeah.
So it's where that triad, the three come together.
Mm-hmm.
But Hermes Trismegistus is considered the founder of science, religion, mathematics, geometry, alchemy, philosophy, medicine, and magic. See how these all fit together?
Yeah.
And we're trying today, in our culture today, anything that's magical or that doesn't go with the science of the media.
Which is arguably not science. By the way.
Right.
Can we talk about that for a minute? The
Yeah.
believe science thing.
The who?
Believe science. Or
Believe
science
science. Oh, yeah,
is
yeah.
real.
Go. Yep, go.
So, okay,
Let's do it.
we were talking before we got on the podcast about this, and it drives me crazy, the double standard of some of this ideology that's being spread around out there. And the number one thing that's been bothering me recently about the idea of believe science or science is real is that they imply through their propaganda that science is this empirical thing, but yet they deny science whenever they want, and they don't see the hypocrisy in there. So, like, back in the summer of 2020, these doctors have this town hall meeting in front of, it was in Sacramento, and there was 20 some doctors. You guys probably remember this out there. They got together and they talked about the positive health recovery of people that were experiencing COVID, and then they treated their patients with hydroxychloroquine.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had scientific evidence and scientific proof spread across these 20 doctors and hundreds of patients of a 100% success rate using the drug hydroxychloroquine. But within the matter of 24 hours, this video was scrubbed from the entire internet. Then the very next thing that the media does is smear one of the ladies involved. And I'm not even going to get into that, but they just go into smear campaigns and discrediting character. And they didn't even talk about the science, which is what these scientists, doctors, were bringing forth to the public eye. So they don't believe that science. They believe the science from the WHO or the CDC or from Bill Gates, which is also not a scientist.
No.
But then, okay, here's the crux. This is the thing that bothers me. Then they say, okay, so there's no such thing as a man and a woman. There's no empirical thing. There's no quote unquote science to back up that there's an objective reality of men and women, and that a man can have a vagina and a girl can have a penis. It's like, no, that's not science. That can be your belief, that can be your opinion, but that's not science. So how is it that the mouth of one person that says science is real can be the same mouth that denies science whenever they want?
Living in Nashville, there's musicians here. And there's one, I'm not going to say a name, but there's one that I follow on my social media platforms, and I really like his work. And he posted something the other day that just said, hey, I just went and got stuck. You go get stuck too, meaning he went and got the vaccine.
Yeah.
And then literally wrote #science behind it.
Oh my God.
And I was like, well, why is this becoming like a cool thing to say? Like, do you even know what you're saying?
Yeah.
Like,
And
stop trying to be cool, and I need you to go read a effing book.
Yeah,
like,
for real.
Please.
Also, the idea of taking a selfie while you're getting a vaccination has never been a thing before.
Can we talk about that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so why OnenO are people taking so many selfies and posting them on the internet?
I mean, I don't know if I actually have an answer for that, other than I think the mind programming and propaganda of this being the savior drug is wild. And I think this is crazy. When somebody approaches the vaccine with critical thinking, I think it's very obvious. The first few questions are, okay, what do we know about this vaccine? What evidence do we see in the real world? What science do we see in the real world of how it's affecting people? And then, do I want it? It's my choice on what I'm going to put in my body. And it's also not your information of what I put into my body. It's none of your business of what I do with my body. So, and being shamed for being anti-vaxxer when you're really just coming from a critical thinking state of mind is wildly inappropriate, in my opinion.
So, I didn't know this, but being on social media, as I am, I see trends that pop up, and I'm like, why, what's happening? And there's been a lot of trends over the past year, and it feels off to me. Like, what is happening today, and why is this the day that this movement is happening? And why do you think your movement on Instagram is actually doing anything?
Yeah.
Anyway, I've noticed this movement of people getting their vaccine and taking a photo of their card, or, them getting the actual vaccine shot. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and she said, well, it's illegal to advertise a vaccine.
Yeah.
And so organizations that are administering the vaccines, they're actually encouraged to promote it. But what is scary about that is that it's not really even places that are promoting it now. It's just people wanting to fit in with the in group and saying, hey, I got mine too. Did you get yours?
Yeah.
And they don't even know why they're getting it.
Yeah.
And, they could be saying, I got it because I want to be around my grandmother. Well, they will tell you, even if you get the vaccine, you're not safe.
Yep.
And you can still get COVID, and you can still transmit COVID. So you're really not safer.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, we've
It's
been
blowing
waiting
my mind.
throughout the whole last year. The goalpost has been, all we got to do is get to the vaccine, get to the vaccine. Now we're at the vaccine, and they're saying, no, you got to get another vaccine, or you can't change anything about the lockdowns. You have to keep your businesses closed, keep the masks on, social distance, and only be around people that you live with. And so they're changing the goalposts again, and they're going to change it, and they're going to change it. And so this is why it's not the mind of a conspiracy theorist that says, hey, that's not right. That's just the mind of a normal, critically thinking person that says, hey, that feels like manipulation. And yeah, it is. And to then label that person a conspiracy theorist or part of the conspirituality movement is just a new form of gaslighting. And it's wild. I don't know if I'm interrupting you, but I do think maybe now would be the time to go into, where did the word conspiracy theory actually come from? Because this is very amazing information.
Yeah, if they're going to merge conspiracy with spirituality, let's break apart the two.
Yeah. So the definition of conspiracy theory, or to be a conspiracy theorist, actually comes from a CIA release document that came out due to a Freedom of Information Act it was drafted originally just after the JFK assassination. When the JFK narrative was coming out into the public, there was an immediate conversation that they wanted to quell. And the conversation was that the narrative they were telling the public was that Lee Harvey Oswald took the shot from a building down into the street that ultimately murdered JFK. However, if you watch the video with your own eyes, the building that they're talking about would imply that JFK got shot in the back of the head. But it's very clear in the video evidence of the shooting, JFK gets shot in the front of the head and his head moves backwards as he loses consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So then the idea is that the shot could not have come from this building. It must have come from the famous grassy knoll. It became famous because everybody kept talking about it. Must have come from this like park area, not from this building. And so the CIA created this term called conspiracy theorist specifically to discredit people that would be questioning the main narrative that the CIA was putting out into the public consciousness.
Yeah.
So that is where the invention of conspiracy theorist came from. The term was created by the CIA specifically to discredit people that would be using their own critical thinking and say, hey, what you're saying about the trajectory of this gunshot does not make sense if you just look at the footage.
It was actually invented in, it says, 1967 to disqualify those who questioned what you were just saying, the original version of JFK's assassination.
Mm-hmm. Where are you reading from?
I am online, The Conversation.
Okay.
There's just a quick article about it. But yeah, so there's two versions, this article says. There's an extreme version that claims the CIA literally invented the term.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also a claim that the CIA intentionally created its negative connotations and so turned the label into a tool of political propaganda.
Mm-hmm.
So it's twofold.
Yeah.
So, obviously creating that term functioned in 1967 with shutting people up by questioning something.
Yeah.
But now it's continued because when you think a conspiracy theorist, you think, a weirdo with,
tinfoil hat.
Think about what's that Will Smith movie? The End of the World, and they're on top of the building. And
I Am Legend?
No, they're waiting for like the UFOs to come in, and they have
you're talking about the alien invasion movie, Independence Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that is what conspiracy theorists remind me of. Is like, oh, aliens are coming. We're gonna go hop up on top of a building because they're gonna land here, and they're gonna beam me up, and
yeah.
I'm open to being experimented on, and that's fine. Do what you want to do. Go for it, girl, guy, whatever. But we cannot sit here and deny the fact that the government itself has created a term, language, that is a tool to discredit and label people into something that they are not.
Yes. So the next level of this might be Project Mockingbird.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
So Project Mockingbird is another CIA project that I might let KK, since I think you have something up there, I might let you take the official definition. But the quick 101 of Project Mockingbird is the CIA wondering if they can change public thought and public consciousness by using journalism and news throughout the entire country to release new ideas into the public. So let's say, you can go on YouTube and find these compilations that people have made of all of these different local news hosts saying the exact same thing. So to make one up, maybe they say, are your emails contributing to global warming? Find out tonight on the 6 o'clock news.
Mm-hmm.
Or they say, scientists say that your emails are contributing to global warming. Well, then these videos on YouTube show you what Project Mockingbird actually is in the real world. They'll cut together 100 or more different local news stations that all say the same things verbatim. And if anybody wants to find one of these, search for Sinclair Media Group and then like, I don't know how to officially help you just find it somehow. But Sinclair Media Group, that was a big one. Because for those people that don't know, Sinclair Media Group owns, I think, the largest portion of news that you would see on like 6 o'clock news, local news. So all they do is they draft one script, one story that they want all of their syndicated local news hosts to read verbatim. And this is what Project Mockingbird is. So if you have something up over there, why don't you help me with the explanation?
Yeah. So just from what I know about, I'm trying to find something interesting that I can read about. But like you were saying, like what I do know about it is back in the 1947 is when it was originally released, and they were trying to control the narrative at that time. When you've got news in all cities across the US reporting on different things, you've got people creating hysteria in different areas of the nation. So the CIA secretly created Project Mockingbird, and they, like you said, they would draft up a story, send it out to the New York Times was involved in this. Like every huge publication or media outlet you can imagine was involved in this. They were literally controlled by the government and said, you have to report it this way. And so I think that's a really hard pill to swallow because journalists have this, like, they take like this code of ethics, like I'm going to be a journalist. I want to like give the people what they want. I think a lot of people that become journalists really do it with a pure intention of, I want to tell people what's really going on. And then they get into the wheelhouse of like, my hands are tied. It's almost like I feel the same way with physicians today. Like we've got kind-hearted people wanting to help. And if they look at there's two sides of a coin. And if you're interested at all with what the other side of the coin looks like or what's over there, it's the same coin. So there's got to be more. It's like the moon. What's on the dark side of the moon? Like I want to know. Exactly. So you just can't. You're not allowed to.
So Project Mockingbird then was active before the creation of the term conspiracy theorist. That's what I'm picking up from your timeline. 1947?
Well, it says, 1963.
That's
what
when
it's saying.
Project Mockingbird. Okay. And that was the year that JFK was actually murdered. Yeah, I was just curious because I didn't know the timelines of these two projects, but that would then make sense. So Project Mockingbird existed in 1963, and then JFK is murdered in 1963, and then this document about controlling the narrative with the term conspiracy theorist is in 1967. So all they are doing at that period of time then is getting every journalist through Project Mockingbird that they have to use the same words. And the words are now conspiracy theorists.
And words are important. That's why words today, #science, #magical. You're a magical thinker. This has been something I've been thinking about a lot is war doesn't look like it used to, where we used to send people off to another country and fight with guns and our fists and bombs. And it could look that way, but we've progressed quite a bit since, the last World War. War today has to be different.
It's information warfare.
It's manipulation of one's thinking.
It's the war of your mind.
Yes, exactly. And so that is why this subject is so important to us and for us to talk about to you, because if you think this is not a war, you are sorely misunderstanding what's happening every time you turn on the radio or the TV. Because your mind is the actual tool that they're using against yourself.
And we know some of the tactics of war, divide and conquer. That's happening in families now. That's happening in friendships and in groups of people that used to just have a difference of opinion, but they could still be friends or still in a social group. Now we live in some sort of weird timeline where if you don't agree with the other person 100%, then they're your enemy.
And if you question the narrative right now, you're a conspiracy theorist, which means I'm automatically in the camp of QAnon or that guy.
By their definition.
Yeah, that guy with the horns that raided the state capitol.
Okay, yeah. So
Let's talk about that.
That's in the article, this Conspirituality article, Teen Vogue. They go on and on talking about how basically there's leaders from the spiritual movement that are now dipping too far into politics. Okay, the person that they use as the example of a leader of the spirituality movement is that dude that we all saw the picture of in the Capitol, riot, whatever we want to label that, wearing like some huge furry neck thing and like the Viking horns and painting his face. They say that he's a leader of some sort of spirituality movement because he's called like the shaman or something like that.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this dude. And let me tell you what, I've gone deep into the spiritual worlds on YouTube and everywhere else since 2010.
Yeah.
And the people that I listen to are like Ralph Smart and Joe Dispenza and Abraham Hicks. I mean, this dude's name and face has never popped up anywhere.
And that's people being people. People are going to create groups, and some, extremes do exist.
Yeah.
But that's the unfortunate part about, if you do not fit the average agenda right now, you are an extremist.
Yeah, that's the polarization. That's the divide and conquer.
Yeah.
And that's why I was bringing that up, to give evidence for the fact that this is a war, and it's a war that's taking place in your mind. Because I have friends that are in arguments with their parents, or with their, a son and a father, or a daughter and a mother, that are having really hard times getting along simply because they have two different beliefs about the vaccines or two different beliefs about the masks. And it's just so heartbreaking. To me, that feels like that's when, quote unquote, they are winning, is when you let it interrupt your personal friendships. Because this is a narrative that they started and that they're controlling and that they're manipulating. And now it's breaking apart families. And that's just honestly heartbreaking to me.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
Yep.
The idea of informed consent is another part of this article that I find absolutely wild. So again, they're trying to say that if you question the science of these vaccines, which arguably there is very little science to back up these vaccines. And I've listened to some other doctors out there that are experts in the field talk about how this should not even be labeled a vaccine, because it's not technically, scientifically a vaccine. It's part of a treatment. The mRNA, quote unquote, vaccine has never been made before, has never been produced before.
Yeah.
And so what those of us in what I like to call the critical thinking world, one of the very normal questions we would have is, what's in this? What is it going to do to my body? We've kind of touched on that point before. But this article is now saying if you ask those questions, you are anti-vax, and that you're shifting the goalpost by saying that you advocate for informed consent. It's like, no, bro, those are wildly different things.
Yeah.
Informed consent has always been a thing for vaccines. It's actually illegal for a doctor to give you a vaccine without informed consent. That's where that term even comes from. So this term, this hashtag, is not created by QAnon or some right-wing conspiracy theorists. This is a very normal thing that now we're being told is very not normal. And that is the smoking gun of gaslighting. When something is very normal, very level-headed and logical and reasonable, then they say, oh, no, that's conspiracy thinking. It's like, oh, no, you're actually gaslighting me.
Yeah,
that's what's happening.
Yeah. To go back to conspiracy theories, my interest in conspiracy theories, I think it began when I was a little girl. My dad is quite into science. He's a smart, mechanical, logically thinking man. And I remember being a little girl, and he'd always have the History Channel on, or he'd always have I think Popular Science magazine would come to our house, and I'd flip through those, all science, the science world, and learning about prisms and how light reflects from such a young age. It fascinated me. And then, of course, after learning about physics, a show about pyramids would come on.
Yeah.
And so I've always been interested, where did the pyramids come from? What are those things about? And, all the, 7 wonders of the world. And I think this childlike wonder inside of all of us really gets into stuff like that. Like, oh, can there be aliens? Or is there a Bigfoot? Or there were kings like Tutankhamun of Egypt. Like, how freaking cool. And so, as you get older, you start looking into kind of conspiracies around all this stuff. It's just a leg of it. And one of the wilder ones that came up was MK Ultra. And when it was first presented to me, I was like, there's no way. Like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. But for those who've never heard, you might be listening and never heard of MK Ultra. But it did, and I think it's important for us to like kind of touch base about what our government agency did to the American people in the 50s and 60s. And it has been released. The CIA has released the documents of that study and reported that A, they lied and covered up about it, and B, they're now admitting to it. I mean, I can't tell you story after story of our government saying, no, that's not happening. And then, 20, 30 years later, that happened.
It's a healthy thing to not trust the government.
It
is a healthy thing to be skeptical of anything the government is going to say to you.
I mean, again, I reserve myself even saying this, but I shouldn't. Why was America formed? For the people to govern the government.
And specifically also the people to govern themselves.
To govern themselves.
To be independent, sovereign beings.
Exactly. And just saying that, automatically people will want to, oh, you're just a freedom fighter. You don't care about the common good of everyone else. And it's like, no.
Can we just take those words on their face value for a second? You're obsessed with freedom. Like, wait a second. Are you not? Are you on some sort of opposite page? And it's wild to me that these basic American ideals are being kind of subconsciously wrapped up in a racist conversation. That if you just say, I love America, the subconscious hate that you get thrown back at you is, oh, you're a racist.
It's really turning people against what America
stands for.
And so that itself is going to usher in something radically different than what we're used to. And I don't think people understand what is happening and what will happen over the next few years.
It's because we haven't lived through those wars.
Exactly. We don't know what it's like to be in a concentration camp. And we
don't know how communism leads to that.
Right.
We can look into history, but we don't see that.
We were talking before we went on air about the gulags and Russian communism and how that's not taught publicly in public schools.
Jordan Peterson talks about it.
Yeah, he sure does. But just the sheer lack of information around Russian communism and the concentration camps that existed and what the government did to the people out there is you have to do your own research. Because the amount of people that were killed in the gulags way supersede what happened to the Jewish community in Nazi Germany.
Jordan Peterson talks about this a lot. And what I've learned from him, and forgive me if I don't get these numbers exactly right, though I know they're basically in the ballpark. I think KK is going to fact check me, which is great. That the Jewish concentration camps in the Nazi Germany situation murdered around 6 million Jews. Whereas the Mao situation with communism and Marxism murdered somewhere around 60 million or 100 million. And those are also estimated numbers. I do remember this from Jordan's talk. These are estimated numbers because there was never an official oversight of these numbers. But based on conservative guesses, I believe Jordan said 60 million people are estimated to have been murdered based on conservative guesses, meaning, going for the short side of the estimate. Mao was based in communism, Marxism. These ideas have never worked. They've never worked. And they're happening in America today.
As a progressive movement, like if you're not on board with this, then you don't want to evolve the right way.
Right, yeah.
You have these ideas that are stuck in history and they're stuck in time, and they are inherently bad, and they're inherently racist, and they're inherently creating separation. But what's actually happening, I see more separation today. Not to say that there aren't systems in place in America that did need a good looking at, and
totally.
some changes, absolutely 100%. But the language and the amount of cognitive dissonance that exists right now.
It's wild.
It's wild. We were just, I was telling OnenO, I just finished the book 1984. I'd never read that before. And at the very end, the main character is in complete torture. The government, the Ministry of Truth, I believe is the division that got a hold of him. And they won't release him from torture unless he says 2 + 2 = 5.
Oh my God.
And he says... he's like, but it doesn't. 2 + 2 = 4.
Right.
And they're like, okay, more torture. And I mean, torture. And then I'd never heard of rat cages before, but that's in that book. So of course I looked that up.
A cage over your head that has rats in front of your face.
And they're hungry.
And they're hungry as shit. And so they're going to basically chew your face off. And this is the form of torture that the lead character of 1984 is going through.
Right. Which was a real thing. I looked, sadly, I went through.
Oh, God.
Oh, man.
That's
it was
a dark rabbit hole.
That lasted for a quick second because it was nightmares.
Oh, man.
But the fact that humans can do that to other humans absolutely scares the shit out of me. But anyway, they broke him down. They finally broke him down through all this torture. And he said, okay, 2 + 2 does = 5. And then they say, do you believe it?
Do you believe it?
And he's like, no, but I'm going to say anything you want me to say so you stop torturing me. And they're like, more torture. You have to believe it.
Yeah.
And so when OnenO, do you want to share what you discovered?
Oh my God, you guys. So I was just scrolling through Instagram, as one does, and I came across this video that I instantly saved to my phone because I was like, wow, we've hit the bottom of the barrel. Or rather, they're finally playing out their full agenda of just crumbling any sort of base agreements on reality, aka they're now claiming that mathematics is racist.
Right.
White supremacist in nature.
Maybe I need to read more about this.
Yeah, there's an article that I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to start by playing this video clip. And obviously we're doing an audio-based podcast. But this video is from Fox News. This is not a pro or anti-Fox News moment. This is just to say that it's a credible source.
Right.
Credible source. There's a lady on here that's being interviewed. This is about a 20-second long clip. With that said, I'm not going to say any more. I'm just going to play it. So here you go. Enjoy this.
Okay, quickly, so I'm misunderstanding. Are we saying that 2 + 2, if you say it's 4, that's racist? I mean, that sounds like we may be mischaracterizing it. What, if you can quickly sum it up?
No, that's not mischaracterizing it at all. Math is basically racist under this ideology because it says there is no such thing as an objective reality. So 4 might not be the right number. 2 + 2 might actually = 5.
Wow. Whoa. These people are for real. This lady is for real.
We're living in
yeah, freaking Orwell. Just in case you think that's one crazy person, which I'm comfortable using the term crazy person to describe someone.
We get called crazy a lot.
Yeah.
So.
Someone that's going to advocate for 2 + 2 might actually = 5. No, can't get behind it. So my sister actually found this article and sent it to me. It's an article that's talking about something going on in Oregon with the Department of Education. I'm just going to read the first 2 paragraphs of this article to give you a little taste of what's going on. So the article starts by saying, recently, the Oregon Department of Education sent its guidance on a path to equitable math to state math teachers. This 82-page instructional toolkit is a framework for, quote, deconstructing racism in mathematics and, quote, dismantling white supremacy in math classrooms. It's a bit strange for me, says the author of this article. If there is residual racism in literature, social science, and history, it is easier to understand. But what is white supremacy in math? The guidance reads, quote, white supremacy culture infiltrates math classrooms in everyday teacher actions. We see white supremacy culture in the mathematics classroom can show up when the focus is getting the, quote, right answer, and when students are required to, quote, show their work. So these people are basically advocating for the fact that it is white supremacists to seek a right answer in mathematics. And it's also part of white culture to show your work, aka show empirically how you got to this answer. I mean, that blows my mind.
Yeah, I still don't know. I mean, I'm not at one of those quite like you say, what's 36 plus 58? I need to write that out.
Yeah.
And do the little like 8 plus, carry the number, show my work.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm reading this article online. It was article, and I get what I'm doing. I'm looking at random articles online.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about them with you. But I also know, hey, I'm going to look up who this author is. I'm going to look at the date it was released. I'm going to see if this is credible or not. Like, I'm not just going to take something at face value.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to do my research. But since this is a new topic to me, I've got to start somewhere, right?
Totally.
So one of the first articles that comes up in a blanketed Google search, why is math racist? That's what I put.
Yeah.
Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation bankrolls math is racist lunacy. So this is bankrolling a group. What does bankrolling mean?
Pay for, to fund.
They're funding a group of activists who believe math is racist. So now we've got old Bill and Melinda behind, they're not just health experts, they're farmers now in India,
Totally.
which that's a whole nother discussion. But let me go down here to the bottom because they say that the quickest way to dismantle the white supremacist culture is to stop requiring students to raise their hand before speaking, because that can look like power hoarding.
Power hoarding.
In addition to breaking the process of thinking, learning, and communicating. So instead, the math teachers should be storytelling circles incorporating dance, music, song, call and response, and other cultural ways of communicating.
I mean, maybe if you go to FAME, the high school.
But this is the problem. Like, science is supposed to be repeated and repeated until it cannot be proven incorrect anymore.
Right.
So we're supposed to throw out a theory, and our intention is to disprove it. As if you're a true researcher. As a researcher, you want to disprove your theory. That is the reason why you bring about a question.
Yeah.
And if you can't, voila.
Yeah.
This is something that is empirically factual because we have tried our hardest to make it not work.
Yeah, and then when you find the answer, you show your work.
Yep.
And then
and
other
it can be
people
duplicated.
can duplicate it. They can replicate your work, and they can find the same answer for themselves and see, oh yeah, this works. And this is called peer review science.
But math is one of those universal languages that nature itself provides to us.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the Fibonacci code, looking at the way geometry itself unfolds within our world.
The golden ratio.
Oh my, what is
wild
happening? So to take math, something that is very rigid in the way that it's processed, 2 + 2 does equal 4.
Yeah.
And to say, no. It can equal whatever you want.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, and you don't believe in that, you're racist.
Totally. Well, I'm going to interject here a kind of slightly heavier view on what we're talking about. So, slight trigger warning. I listened to this guy for a while named Mark Passio. Are you familiar with him?
No.
Mark Passio?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, he's an interesting character. I'm not going to go into a deep dive of who he is. I just wanted to let you guys know who I heard this come from. Very brief bullet points on him. He, in his own words, he grew up in Catholicism. He did not vibe with it. He eventually swung full swing the other direction and joined the Church of Satan.
Oh. Ooh.
And then just fast forward to the end of his journey, he since has left the Church of Satan and is now advocating spirituality and coming back to God and to Christ.
Oh, wow.
And he talks a lot about manipulation and how our society is being manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
And then he talks a lot about these underground movements of Satanism that are infiltrating a lot of our culture. And so he laid out one time the 4 tenets of Satanism. And I don't remember all 4 of them. The one that I remember that is connected to what we're talking about is moral relativism. And so it's an actual tenet. It's one of the 4 tenets of Satanism, moral relativism. And that basically means that there is no such empirical thing as right or wrong, no such empirical thing as good or evil. And so the idea, as it connects to this math thing, I can't help but see the Luciferian Satan influence on this ideology that says math has no empirical reality to it, that 2 + 2 could actually equal anything that you want. I don't think that this is actually just a misguided person talking. I think that they are coming from, to put it lightly, from a dark soul that, is out there trying to spread their influence and agenda.
Well, for one to believe what you just said, one does have to believe in something outside of themselves, like your soul.
Mm-hmm.
I love this quote by Jesus and Yogananda, to invest in things that the moths cannot destroy, because this world is physical and it is passing.
Mm-hmm.
And everything in this world, the day you're born, you're closer to death from this reality.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think a lot of people, and we've touched base about this before, do not have a relationship with death. What is that? A repose, a falling asleep from this reality into a next.
Yeah, we're just afraid of it and we kind of ignore it and push
And
it
so
off.
what's one of the extensions of fear is control and anger. And so if I can control this reality, then I don't have to really control another reality, because this one's the one that's working for me. So when you talk about something that, an evil force or dark force that could be present within us, within the world, and manipulating people's thoughts and actions, people automatically want to go into religion, or, oh, you're just being religious and that's a thing of the past.
Right.
And it's
as if there's no value in it today.
Exactly. As if something just that idea just left. So I'm really into Twin Peaks right now, David Lynch.
Yeah.
And
I've never seen it, but I know a bit about it.
I'm on season 3, and one of the trippiest. They literally say season 3, episode 8 is probably one of the trippiest things that has ever been created, and it's the birth of something evil out of the most evil thing man has created, which was the atomic bomb.
Oh wow!
And it's really deeply symbolic. And my boyfriend was kind of explaining this episode to my daughter and I when we were watching it. And he was like, look, this is factual, but there was someone that was in the CIA, and he'd go out to the desert, and he actively worked in the Manhattan Project.
Which is wild.
And he was working with one of the main guys, Satanist guys in LA, and they were actively working on trying to create a portal to open up for Satan. This guy worked for the CIA.
Oh yeah.
And he's in the desert in the 40s. Yeah,
they did it around the 40s. They did it twice, actually.
So this was,
By the way, people that aren't familiar, Manhattan Project is when our own government experimented with time travel. And this is not... It sounds like a movie. It sounds like something I'm pulling out of my ass, but I guarantee you, look it up, Manhattan Project, and this is when our government was legit trying to time travel.
Oh, the start date was 1939. So yeah, so they were literally, this is real life and can be factually talked about, trying to create a portal so that Satan and his helpers could, be unleashed on planet Earth.
Right.
And not that they're not already, because,
yeah.
I have this, I do believe in I don't believe we're born sinners.
Mhm.
You know, that's something that, that's a very religious way of thinking. Original sin, you know.
Yeah.
But I do believe that sin, however you want to, evil, darkness, whatever that is, it exists it exists in this world. And
Sure.
it can manipulate you and cause you to think or act certain ways.
Oh, yeah. There are only two major influences on the human heart and mind, and that is the influence of good and the influence of evil. And what you choose to follow is who you will become and what you will manifest in your life. So it ends up becoming, again, reflected back to you on the external of your own reality. And that which you do in the world and that which you promote in the world is that very same thing you will receive. You are actually in the driver's seat of your experience.
Oh, absolutely.
And it matters what you do in the world and what you promote in the world. And it doesn't matter because of how it affects other people. It matters because that will be reflected back to you. That's a law of the universe. If you believe that, other people are assholes, let's just go with a generic example, then it's a statement of your own belief in the assholeness of yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you're going to get more and more experiences of assholes in your life until you realize, oh, there's a part inside of me that I need to fix. So this world is reflective.
There was a theory by, so my undergrad is in sociology, and I love I love observing people. I love seeing people in their natural, like hanging out with friends.
Yeah.
And how they, honestly, it's the taking off of the mask that we feel we have to put on. We had a friend the other day that said, living in today's society is like putting a mask over a mask. The literal, like we have to put on our psychological, our symbolic mask before we go in the world. And now we have to put on a physical mask over that mask.
Totally.
Anyway, the looking glass self is a social psychological concept created by Charles Horton Cooley in 1902. It fascinated me.
Wow.
And it states that a person's self grows out of his society's interpersonal interactions and perceptions of others. So this takes away from the individual, but the society. The society's view upon itself is going to continue to grow. And so people shape themselves based on what other people perceive and confirm other people's opinion of themselves.
Yeah.
So it's...
Yeah, because we seek our validation externally.
And that's the scary part about going back to the vaccines and like what's happening on social media. It's not just the vaccine cards and it's the blackout Tuesday, like put a black square up or put a white square up or whatever that trend is. It's the validation you get from following the in crowd of that moment.
Yeah.
And these moments are so quick now.
Well,
and so you're continually seeking validation. So you don't even know why you're getting the vaccine. You just know it's going to keep you in the in crowd.
Yeah. There's I've been calling that shame culture recently, and I don't think I made up that term, but shame culture is being used as one of the strong arms of this whole narrative. You got the motivation behind most of this mind controlling gaslighting is only fear or shame. And then there's probably guilt wrapped up in there somewhere. But mostly you see it playing out in, you got to be afraid of this, and that's supposed to motivate your actions to change yourself. Or if you don't get it from that avenue, the fear avenue, then now I'm going to shame you into it. And I'm going to make you feel like a social outcast for not joining the quote unquote in group. But that's bullshit.
And like you said, guilt, what if I gave it to my grandmother?
Totally.
Or what if my child, who I don't require to wear a mask because the CDC says that children under the age of 2 don't spread it.
Right.
But I'm going to put a mask on them anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Because of the guilt.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen some of these stories recently of children being quarantined in a room, and I'm talking like 8 years old.
Oh,
And
yeah.
their
This is big in
parents-
New York right now.
Yeah, their parents won't even see them
Oh,
for
man. I
14
heard about
days.
this. Yeah.
It's wild. I'm like, dude, that person is living in so much fear that they're literally traumatizing their own child in their own home. And it's heartbreaking. I mean, I posted on my Instagram several times this last week that viral picture and then eventually video of these students in Washington State that are in music class in school, and they're all in these little pods. And when I say pods, it's hard to describe what
like
I'm
a
talking
tent.
about. It's a small one person, almost like a changing tent that you would have at a beach so you could, change your clothes. But imagine a classroom of children, high school kids, being put in these little tiny personal tents that are, maybe 2 foot by 2 foot wide. And then there's a child over here that has a tuba inside there. And this girl has a clarinet. And this boy has a trumpet. And there's like 30 or 40 students in this classroom, all in their own individualized tent that is basically like a tiny little cage. And then the news is interviewing the president or the principal of this. I think it was a high school. It might be a middle school. And they're like, where did you get this absolutely inspiring idea? And I was like,
wow.
wait, you mean inspiring idea to traumatize children? This is mind blowing that we're going to now like golf clap and virtue signal and applaud this principal for.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, we got approval from the state board. I'm like, who the fuck gave you approval to do that? That is wild.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one of the most ridiculous things I've seen recently.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. So before we end, I did want to kind of bring up a subject that you brought to my attention that I'm definitely going to be doing my own research over the next few days. And that's the Uyghur.
Yeah, the Uyghur concentration camps going on in China.
So what bothers me, and I would love for you to kind of break down what you know about it off the top of your head. I don't know enough to even talk about it, but I do know that there is, we talk about unity and breaking down labels and coming together in the U.S. so much. And not that I'm against Biden. I really, I pray for our president because I obviously want the best outcome for humankind. Yeah. All the time. And no matter who's in charge. But what he said, and what you were talking about, what he said in a press conference recently, like kind of tears my heart apart.
Me too. It's one of the biggest things that's really been weighing on me. And it's been maybe 10 days since Biden gave this talk. And I'm trying to find it here on YouTube, so maybe I could play the audio. But to summarize it really quick, and then I'll see if we can play the audio. Biden gave a town hall meeting on CNN with Anderson Cooper. And so you can find the video out there searching for that stuff. And the question of the Uyghur concentration camps going on in China came up. And basically, Anderson passed it over to Biden to express his thoughts. And while I can't remember verbatims, mostly because Biden doesn't always speak in complete sentences, is he ends up saying that he doesn't want to make he doesn't want to take a critical position of China, and that he basically summarizes the whole situation there as cultural differences. And he says that, we're in no position to criticize how the Chinese want to manage their people or their immigrants. And it's wild because what's actually going on is that the Chinese Communist Party, run by President Xi Jinping, is taking millions of, well, I don't know if I should say millions. I don't have a hard fact to back that up. But a shitload, we're going to say it that way, of Uyghur,
that encompasses it.
Yes, of Uyghur Muslims that are in their territory, and they are putting them into concentration camps. Now, this might sound like a weird thing to say, except for on Reddit for the last year, people have been posting videos of this going on. There's a video I saw of at least 200, possibly 300 people sitting in this open area. This is almost like a helicopter video being taken. And every single one of these people is wearing a black hood over their face. I don't remember exactly what they're wearing, but they weren't wearing full clothes. They're wearing basically like shorts and a shirt. And they have a black hood over their faces, over their heads. They're all sitting in a row and they're being policed by armed patrol walking around in and through all of them. And then they're being ushered into trains and buses to be transported elsewhere. More stuff has been coming out about how these people are being, it's a wide range of brutality, everything from just forced labor to rape to forced sterilization. And
They're
this
calling them re-education camps.
Re-education camps, yes,
Ooh.
in the very Orwellian words that the media will give to it. But this is actually going on. So it's crazy to me that Biden will not address this situation and just call it cultural differences. And I can easily infer that the reason he's doing that is because he doesn't want to, quote unquote, jeopardize our relationship with China. But do we want to have a relationship with China when they are actively doing these type of things, having active concentration camps?
Yeah.
And so the last thing I'll say about this
Against
subject.
one ethnic community.
Yeah, it's genocide, literal genocide.
Yeah.
Like, this is the crazy thing about the timeline we live in, is we say these words so much that we've been, the sting from them has been deprogrammed from our minds. But this is actual genocide. And again, another thing that's been kind of desensitized in our minds is the idea of Nazi Germany. We just say, oh, this person's a Nazi, that person's a Nazi. This analogy is actually 100% accurate. This is like the Nazi German concentration camps going on, and the president of the United States saying, well, that's just a cultural difference.
Yeah, that's their norms are different than ours. And he does quote that he does not agree with what's happening. Well, I think it'd be safe to say that we didn't agree with what Hitler was doing either.
Yeah.
It's, I don't have the answers to what we should do, but I don't think that just saying that we're going to state our opinion to the UN and say we don't agree with what's happening, but we're also not going to do anything because their norms are culturally different.
Right. Yeah, that's
like
a
torturing
wild difference.
One ethnic community because their norms are different. That's not an excuse.
Yeah, it's not. Okay, so I haven't pre-checked this video, but I just found a 1-minute clip on YouTube. The title of this video is Joe Biden on China's human rights violations. And it's 1 minute, so let's just take a listen to that.
Chinese leaders, if you know anything about Chinese history, it has always been the time when China has been victimized by the outer world is when they haven't been unified at home. So the central, vastly overstated, the central principle of Xi Jinping is that there must be a united, tightly controlled China. And he uses his rationale for the things he does based on that. I point out to him, no American president can be sustained as a president if he doesn't reflect the values of the United States. And so the idea, I'm not going to speak out against what he's doing in Hong Kong, what he's doing with the Uyghurs in western mountains of China, and Taiwan trying to end the one China policy by making it forceful. I said, and by the he said he gets it. Culturally, there are different norms at each country, and their leaders are expected to follow.
Yeah. So he's basically saying, well, okay, look, so China runs their country with a super tight fist, and that's what he should do in order to have the approval of the people. Well, dude, guess what? First of all, before the pandemic, there was a year-long protest going on in Hong Kong.
Yep, absolutely.
And that protest only came to an end because of the pandemic. So he doesn't have the approval of the people.
No.
And now the Uyghur concentration camps, he's then just saying, oh, well, there's cultural norms, cultural differences. No, bro, this is empirically bad.
This is what we were talking about earlier. This is definitely darkness that is blinding people to actually see the truth anymore.
Yep.
And you have to work every day. You have to challenge your own thoughts every day.
Yeah.
Like, what am I being fed? I mean, it was a huge bumper sticker back in the day, kill your TV. Yeah, you go ahead and kill the freaking TV.
Shut that shit off.
Yeah, shut it off. Take a 1 week and see how you feel.
I like to frame it like this to people when I'm having these types of conversations. If you had a friend that you knew every, like 90% of the time, he would just lie to your face and manipulate you to do something for him or just teach you something wrong about the world, would you remain friends with him? And I think the obvious answer is no. Nobody likes being friends with a liar, but we just turn on our TV all day, every day, and we sit there and we let it lie to us over and over and over again, and we never think to end that relationship.
And you know what most people say? The reason why their TV's on all the time? They don't like the quiet.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there's something inside of you that is resisting the very thing your soul is craving. Be still and know that I am God. You will never hear the voice of whatever you want to call God. I call him God. I call it God.
Yeah.
I believe it's a creational force beyond us that is incomprehensible, that is loving and kind and wants to commune with us. But it will not commune with us unless we sit down and we commune with it.
Yeah, we have to listen.
You have to shut off your TV. You have to shut off your computer, your radio, your
Ultimately,
phone.
you have to shut off your mind.
Yeah.
You have to ultimately figure out how to quiet your mind in order to hear that voice. So this is actually a good segue into how I thought maybe we can wrap up the episode.
Okay.
I think I'd like to give both of us the opportunity to express just how do we get back into our own heart? How do we get back into the awakened heart that is full of love and passion and yet is also a warrior and is able to stand in these hard truths that, you know, other people might label us conspirituality people. But those of us that are here listening in this podcast, my guess is you're magnetically attracted to this conversation because you are on the spiritual awakening path. And there's a part of you that can see through this very clearly. And we're just helping to articulate it and bring the words to the forefront. So would you like to go first or should I go first?
Well, I'm a big quote person.
Yeah.
So I think I do kind of talk to myself quite a bit. And one of my favorite quotes is out of the Bible. Be in the world, but not of the world. And I do live here and I love the world, but I also know that that phrase in Protestant, Christian, westernized thought forms is not healthy.
Yeah.
And so for me, rephrasing that to really mean something deeply spiritual takes it out of the, putting it on the wall, or it really means for me that I come from a place beyond and I'm here for a purpose. And if my soul doesn't fit in with this world, there's a reason, and don't try to make it fit in because it doesn't want to. And if my heart feels pure and my conscience is clear, I know I'm on the right path. And if I can go to bed at night and wake up in the morning and say thank you 3 times, I know I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
Thank you for another day.
Yeah. Jesus said they hated me and they will hate you, and that a prophet is never recognized in his hometown.
Einstein says it cannot be changed without changing our thinking. Like everything comes down to our thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's why the war on our thoughts and our mind is the current war we're living in right now.
100%. Yep. That's it.
I mean, the Buddha, we are what we think. Lao Tzu. I mean, there's Drunvalo Melchizedek.
Yeah.
He's a really awesome spiritual teacher that really talks about the heart and the field that our hearts that we possess. It magnifies.
Yeah.
I do a meditation and a prayer every single morning, and I drop I intentionally think about being in my head, like my third eye, my eye be single. And I visualize that being me dropping down into my heart. And I have this scene of me being over on a cliff. And I have this kind of like a pergola over me.
Yeah.
And I'm up on a mountain and the sun is setting. And it's beaming on me. And it's right where the sun, where you can like gaze into it without harming yourself.
Yeah.
And I can only get into this visualization if I drop down into my heart. And it's almost as if I can feel the sun and I can feel the wind. And I see this place in my mind. It's in my mind visually, but I feel it in my heart.
Yeah.
And man, that place empowers me every single day.
Totally. It'll shift your entire energy.
Yeah, so that's kind of, if I'm fitting in with the crowd, to me, that means I'm off balance.
Yeah, there was a meme that I saw go around this last week of if your opinions fully align with mainstream media, celebrities, politicians, all of this stuff, then you're probably in the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
Like you're going the wrong way, or you're probably not that much of a rebel.
Yeah. You're not who you think you are.
Yeah. But that's great. I do that meditation too. I've done that one. I do a different form of that meditation quite frequently. And yeah, that's great. Well, my side of this is I try to, after sifting through all of this stuff, I view this as the 3D. This is like the surface, right? And in the spiritual awakening path, we have these kind of catchphrases of 5D or, raising your dimension, raising your vibration. To me, when I try to figure out what does that mean, I think that means looking at the subtext and like going into the imaginal realm with it. And so when I see all of this 3D arguing going on, the thing that my brain tries to figure out is, okay, so all of this talk is distracting us from something we're not supposed to be talking about. This is all actually the subtext of the main thing that they don't want us talking about. What is that? What is that main thing? To me, over the last year, what has become apparent that they don't want us to actually think and believe is that our bodies are miracles. Our bodies are miraculous creations. They're capable of healing. They're capable of preventing disease. And this is backed up in science.
Yeah, exactly.
It's clear if you look at the science in the world, but also it's to just come back to, again, what is the main thing they don't want us knowing? They don't want us knowing our own innate power of the very body that we live with, and we're going to live our entire lifetime in this body. And so that is the main thing that I've really been trying to remind people of on my social medias and on my YouTube channel, is that you are a miracle. And don't let this mind programming of fear make you forget that. Because when you live in that type of affirmation of knowing that you are a walking, living, breathing miracle, you will be organizing your body in a positive way. The cells of your body will be able to work together to heal. Everything going wrong in you will become right in you. And the people that say that this is magical thinking, they think that they're dogging me and saying something derogatory.
Yeah.
They're actually giving me a compliment because it is 100% magical, but not in the illusory sense, in the very miraculous sense.
Yeah.
So that's just, for me, that's how I'm at least trying to help people that follow me on social media come back to a center with all of this stuff. Remember who you are, which is a walking, living, breathing miracle. And then move through every other form of 3D arguments or conflicts with that awareness. Remember you're a miracle, and then do whatever you need to do in the world. Because if you can actually live in that space, I think you're going to see through a lot of the bullshit going on. And so don't let this narrative crumble your remembering, aka the Remembering Podcast, here to remind you you're a miracle.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's where I would wrap up my side.
Yeah, just waking up every day is a gift. It's an opportunity to recreate yourself every single day.
Yeah. And
you do not have to stay in, if you are feeling conflicted or confused, everything is reset by unplugging. Yep. Unplug yourself from whatever you're feeding yourself for like 2 days.
Yeah.
See what happens.
You're talking mentally feeding yourself. Unplug.
Everything. I mean, there's a reason why, everything you look at, you listen to, you say verbally, you touch, everything you do is insanely important. And you are the only one that has a investment in its outcome of the future. It's you are a long-term investment in yourself. What do you want yourself to look like in a year?
Yeah.
And if you don't like yourself right now, there's a lot of things that our society is pumping into us that say, this is normal. You should do this. You should engage in this. This is completely normal.
Yeah. Or if you don't do this, you're a bad person.
Or, there's just a lot, there's a lot out there with, the internet. Make sure you're protecting your eyesight. Make sure whatever you're looking at, check in. If you feel something, turn it off.
Yeah. I like to remind people that you should think of thoughts as actually a form of food or nutrition, because your subconscious is always chewing and digesting those thoughts. And so even when you passively let thoughts into your mind, whether you are just thinking you're watching the news in the background, or you're just watching Netflix or whatever it might be, your subconscious is always going to take in and chew and digest those thoughts. And so you must choose your thoughts wisely. You must choose which thoughts you feed your subconscious wisely, because that will become a part of you. In the same way that if you eat a banana, it will become a part of you, or if you eat a Big Mac, it'll become a part of you. If you watch, maybe this is a great resource at the very end. I'd love to rapid fire a few of our favorite inspirational people that we like to watch on YouTube. Just throw some names out there. Like I mentioned this earlier, but Ralph Smart. Put his thoughts into your brain and tell me you don't feel good. Listen to Ralph Smart. Go listen to Greg Braden, Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton. Hell, even if you want more a mainstream name, Tony Robbins. Like, who else you got?
I love Wayne Dyer.
Yes.
I really like listening to Luke Story's podcast.
He's great.
Abraham Hicks is great. If I just need like a recharge, I'll just put something on like Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah, that's a great list.
Ooh, Viktor Frankl's Man Search for Meaning. I'll probably read that once a year because it does. Man needs a meaning to live.
Yeah, we do. We do.
And something outside of themselves.
Yeah. So choose your influences wisely. And if you need some influences, just start by Googling, or like I like to say, DuckDuckGoing, any of those names, and just see what they have to say.
Be careful of like spiritual leaders of 2021.
Yeah, honestly, maybe that's the next podcast, debunking that.
Oh,
the spiritual gurus of today.
Yeah, they have like Pope Francis on. I just pulled up a list of the most influential spiritual leaders around the world.
Oh, as if that list is going to mean anything.
Oh, James Redfield, he's a good one. Yeah. He wrote the Celestine Prophecy books.
I do love that book. It's an amazing book. Also, J.P. Sears. He is hilarious, and I love his critical thinking mind. And I got to say, he won me over. I wasn't really a fan of his back in like 2015. But then everything I've seen in the last 3 or 4 years, his evolution is amazing to watch.
Yeah.
He's hilarious. If you need a chuckle, look up J.P. Sears. And okay. I think this is where we're going to wrap it up.
Yep.
So
awesome.
Thank you guys for coming along this wild journey with us.
Please email us or find us on Instagram. We really want to engage with you because we both know that a lot of the subjects we talk about, sometimes we'll get together and we're like, let's not be super heavy. And it's like, no, I mean, this is what we're passionate about.
We are deep thinkers and deep divers.
And so this is probably going to be, always going to be this way. So if you are a deep diver and a deep thinker and you're confused, or you're just completely opposed to everything we're saying, I want to talk to you. I want to hear you out. I love to question my own ways of thinking. And I'm open to, we're both open to that. So
we have this daydream of getting messages that we can read on air and then have talks about. So
yeah, exactly.
If you want to reach out to us, you can find us on Instagram at The Remembering Podcast. You can email us at therememberingpodcast@gmail.com. And until we talk to you again, we'll be back in about 2 weeks. So enjoy your day and have a beautiful evening. Bye.
Bye.